Welcome to Fun Classic Reads. Every month, we perform a live read from classic and modern books to bring you a combination of lighthearted laughs and literature. I'm Christie Stratos, historical suspense and historical fantasy author, and my co-host is sci-fi author David M. Kelly.
Hi.
Tonight, we will be reading from a classic and favorite British humor duo, the Jeeves and Wooster story, Pearls Mean Tears, from the Inimitable Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. And a lot of people love Jeeves and Wooster, depicted by Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry. So you might be familiar with this story, actually. And we're going to try our best to bring you that level of fun and maybe even more. And I know it's going to be extra fun because our guests for tonight are really going to be working overtime on this one. So we have with us tonight historical and contemporary fiction author Margaret Pinard, and multi-genre author and sock aficionado, yes, you heard that right, J.D Estrada. So welcome to you both. Oh, there we go. He was ready.
Oh my gosh. It was either sock aficionado or banana spy. I don't know how you pick among so many things that JD does.
It is banana secret agent.
Secret agent. Sorry.
Inappropriate. I haven't seen those socks. I don't think I've seen those socks.
I have to take a picture. These are Pringles.
Pringles. Oh, nice.
Pringles socks. Uh-huh.
Pringles do not suck, but these are socks.
Nicely done. Thank you, Gina. Yeah.
Hi to Anita. Hi to Amber. We all love Margaret's hat. Doesn't she look great? She looks great. She's going to do some quick changing later, so you're going to be extra impressed by her.
We'll see.
So, in case you're unfamiliar with our guests, we're just going to ask them to introduce themselves pretty quickly with what they do as an author or anything they want to tell us about themselves. So let's start with you, Margaret.
So hello, everybody. My name is Margaret Pinard, like Captain Picard, if anyone is a Star Trek fan out there. And I love historical fiction. This might be how I got into the whole costume getup as well. I love reading it, so that's what I started out writing. And then I've branched out a little into the fantasy short stories as well. I love spending time in Scotland. So mostly you will find my books happening in the UK and Canada. So if that sort of historical fiction appeals to you, check out the books. And also my YouTube channel, I do booktube and authortube stuff. So whether you're a reader or a writer, I'm there at least twice a week to have fun with y'all in the chat. That's me.
Very nice. Great to have you with us. And I love how much you know about Scotland and historical fiction in general and everything. It's, and she has a great Twitter feed too, if you're interested, and a nice Facebook group as well. That's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Plus a Patreon.
Yes. We've talked about Patreon, what to do, what to offer. Yeah, it's fun.
Definitely. So how about you, JD?
Well, first off, she's also the co-host of the AuthorTube Writer Conference, and I will be participating in the AuthorTube Writer Conference. You're welcome for the plug because you forgot.
I did. I have the link for the announcement stream tomorrow. So there's 3 co-chairs, and it's SD Houston, Devin Gambrell Clark, and myself this year. And Devin's hosting tomorrow's stream where we're going to do some announcements and excitement about speakers. And so I can pop that in the chat I don't think I can actually if I don't have a wrench, but I'll put it in the private chat. How about that for David?
Sure.
And now it's all about me. Hi there, friends. I've been at a decade being an indie author. My name is J.D Estrada. I have published 22 books. Out of those 22 books, there is nonfiction, there's poetry, there's middle grade fiction, there's Spanish horror, and there's actually urban fantasy. When I say that there's urban fantasies, that there's an entire series that you have to, if you want to work out, this is good for that. If you have it's good. It's for calisthenics. This is the human cycle. It starts with only human. and we start exploring the body. Then we go to Shadow of a Human, which is the second one, which explores the mind and the psyche. And finally, after a long wait, and although this has the ban for not for resale because Amazon is stupid,
Yeah.
Beyond Human is the final book, and this explores the soul aspect of humanity. It is my exploration of humanity. If you like Easter eggs, this is like a huge ass omelet of Easter eggs. A lot of reference to 90s era grunge. I think you can tell that I'm a fan. A little bit. And it's got angels, demons, and vampires that do not sparkle.
Very nice. Very nice.
Apart from that, I have a lot of fun online. Check my Instagram. I think it's the most consistent that I'm on. I'm also on Threads, and I try to make that work. I'm also on Twitter because I can't give up. On Facebook, it's occasionally very, very, very active, and I don't know why, and I don't care. I'm just very happy when it is active. And I also host a yearly The March of the Writers, which I'm very happy that it finished because, man, it was intense. Because I do it in English y en español porque yo soy de Puerto Rico, and if you don't understand what I just said, that means that you have to take Duolingo and learn Spanish so that you can also follow my bilingual brain.
Or just live in California for half your life.
California.
I'll do it. Fantastic. So before we get started, we're just going to each talk about what is up with us right now, what we've been up to, what you can look forward to from us. So we'll go the other way this time. Why don't we start with David? Because last time I actually forgot to do both of us. So
Oops.
That's okay because I don't really have much to share at the moment. So I'm busily working away on my secret project that no one knows the name of. But then again, the name might change anyway, so that's probably a good thing, which is why I don't reveal these things early.
Yeah.
They change too much. So yeah, I'm working on my next novel. It's going to be another science fiction adventure, surprisingly enough. Seeing as that's kind of what I like to write. But other than that, I don't really have anything and nothing coming up particularly soon. I'm going to the UK at the beginning of May for a couple of weeks just to see family and so on, but nothing kind of connected with any of my writing. So that's it, really. Just keep waiting. I'll get there.
Keep waiting. Hang on.
Excellent.
I'll get there.
All right. What about you, JD? I'm going opposite.
Okay. I just did. It's barely. It was 100,000 K.
Yeah. It just came out, completed the series. That's
so I've been resting a little bit, but I've been also active because I will be giving in support of CL Cannon. She actually helps co-chair homeschool co-op. I think it's in Maryland or Connecticut. I'm blanking right now because I'm doing so many things. And I was like, oh, I'll do a writing course if they bid $20, and 6 people said yes. So I'm preparing a writing course for next Saturday. I wanted, rather than doing something that was cookie cutter or whatever, I asked people what they were interested. I gave them about 22 or 25 topics that I could talk about. You all know me, you know that I can talk. And I organized it. It's 10 topics. We're going to be discussing that. I'm going to do exercises for each of the things that they were curious about, and to give them a different perspective. I'm not going to be talking like it's a master class and doing the triangle with my hands. I'm going to talk from an honest perspective. It's not like I can pay the rent with my books, but I can look at each of my books and be proud of what I've done. And if any of what I've done can help them or give them ideas on how to do stuff, we'll see. So I have that. I will be doing two chats in the Author Tube Writing Conference. One is going to be about working and collaborating with artists to get the best cover for your book. I am super proud. Just look at that pretty little thing. It's pretty.
Gorgeous.
This element I hate, but apart from that, I love everything else. And I'm very proud of most of my covers. And that's because I do creative briefs. I work directly with the artist. We have a back and forth, and I've had different dynamics and different relationships. It's not a one formula thing that works for me. Each artist you have to approach differently, and work with them is different, and they've helped me in different ways. So that's one. And the other one is healthy writing tips, because there are so many unhealthy things that we do and damage ourselves. So it's just giving ideas.
What are you talking about, JD?
You know dang well.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that. I might also be invited to another classroom to talk to 4th and 5th graders about writing a novel.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, that sounds fun.
When that formally happens, I will be talking more about that. I'm very excited about that, and I'm going like, okay, how am I gonna entertain 8 and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds? So that's gonna be fun and different. And writing wise, I am outlining a novel in Spanish, a novel and 2 novels in English. The novel in Spanish, it's an urban fantasy set in Old San Juan. It's going to be very fantastical. It's going to be kind of dark and very fun. I grew up a lot in Old San Juan because Mom and my grandfather had a store there, and I just hung out a lot, and that stuck. And I just want to explore that. And in English, obviously, I'm going to do another urban fantasy, and it's going to be a standalone, because people are like, oh, when's the next series going to come out? And I'm like, yeah, because it wasn't traumatic the first time around. And that's it's going to be an urban fantasy set in Atlanta. So basically, my new urban fantasies are going to be focused on the places that I have lived or I live. Because when you walk around, you just see random stuff that inspires. And I have one more novel that I'm also outlining that has to do with the world of advertising, and it's going to be the book that I'm going to work hard to get canceled over, and I think I can do it. And I'm also working on a short story collection that is almost halfway done, so it's like, just push it and get it done.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. That is quite a to-do list.
Never get bored. Never get bored.
Never get bored.
Double handful.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh.
How about you, Margaret?
I had a bit of a busy season. So February, I went on a trip to the UK, and I've been doing lots of research reading for the current work in progress. Yes, banana. And so I put up a bunch of videos on the research process and my discoveries and my research reads. I'm looking into 1830s and 1840s Glasgow area. So we're talking about social movements and the Reform Bill and like progressivism in early Britain, early modern Britain. So that's been fascinating to read about. So you can find that on my channel. I have been helping with the AWC, the AuthorTube Writing Conference, as mentioned. So I popped that into the chat, and Christie has put it in the main chat. For more information, find out about that. We have JD. I think we have like 30 other speakers and lots of fun stuff going on, and giveaways and like social hours and stuff. So hopefully very interactive and entertaining. Basically, I've got summer here in Portland. I did all my traveling, and now I'm staying put for a while after like a month of traveling down to California and to the UK. And so I am out of excuses to work on editing the novel. So, that will be my focus, and you can all keep me accountable for that, because I really, yes, banana, keep me accountable. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I hope you'll make lots of progress while you're sort of like staying still, especially since you got all that research done, you know?
Yes.
Hopefully that'll go well.
Yeah, thank you.
So what about you,
as for
Christie?
me- What was that? Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I was just saying, what about you, Christie?
Don't forget
What's
about me.
going
Yeah,
on?
right.
Yeah, what's going on for you?
As for me, it's been a little bit slow lately on the writing end because of the changes. I think I might have mentioned this last month. Kindle Vella made some changes. They decided to make the first 10 episodes free instead of the first 3 episodes, which means you don't get paid for any of that. Well, they say they'll consider it when you get paid, but we all know what that means. So,
Yeah.
and then they made it so that every single token count is 10 tokens. So anything you read from, like any episode you read, this is serialized reading in case you're not familiar with Kindle Vella. The reader pays 10 tokens, and it doesn't matter how much the writer writes. So it doesn't matter if my work is 4,000 words or 5,000 words or 1,000 or 600, I'm still going to only get paid the same amount, and it did not used to be that way. So I've been spending my time breaking down the very long episodes that I had, which people did like. They like the long episodes, but it cut my income from Kindle Vella by 70 something %. So I can't continue with that. So I have been spending a lot of time reworking those and making sure they end properly and inserting extra author notes and all kinds of stuff. So I finished Grimoire Society of Dark Acts, that's book 1. And now I am working on book 2, which is Corrupted Magic. Halfway through it or so. It takes time because if you submit too many at a time, they won't put them through. So it's like a whole mess. So it's been taking up a lot of my time.
A whole other marathon to get back to where you were.
Right, exactly. And then Prohibited Magic is just gonna remain the way it is, and I will just continue writing. So I actually have the next episode done of Prohibited Magic. I just haven't had time to do like 2 small bits of research that I wanted to make it a little bit more detailed. So I will be working on that. I need to just get that episode out and continuing to get up Corrupted Magic the way it should be, so I can make the same amount at least, out of it. So other than that, I have my editing business, which is what I do full time. You can find it at proofpositivepro.com. And I'm always doing that. So I'm editing a lot. You can always contact me over there if you are looking for an editor, and we can talk about it. And that's the majority of what I do. And then we are here with Fun Classic Reads. So that's pretty much it for me, I think. So that means we are ready to perform, and we're going to have a fantastic time. Now I need to change a little bit. As you can see, I'm Jeeves. So I will be back. Margaret will be back. We'll all be back in a second. Maybe Dave and JD will entertain you temporarily. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You're right back.
I need to get dressed.
You need to get dressed.
But we can still verbally be here.
Sure.
I love the audio avatar change. That was next level. See, this is from the pro who does these every month. Respect.
Like I said, we're going to be reading from The Inimitable Jeeves, and that actually is, I believe, a bunch of short stories. And so that's where today's short story is coming from. And that was actually published, that book was published in 1923. And if you want to have some silly fun, you can look up The Inimitable Jeeves book covers on Google and see the many, many covers it has had through the years, including there's just some really funny ones. You got to see it. And they're fun because they're old too. So you can see that old fabric in there and everything, etc. It's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty funny. And they had illustrations in the original books, I believe, which were also fun.
And if you really want to have fun, you can make a drinking game out of it and try to see how long it takes you how many drinks it takes you to mess up the word inimitable.
One for you.
Inimitable.
Yeah, you're going to have fun with drinking.
Oh. Yes, thank you.
Oh, wait. I forgot a part.
There's my cue. Oops. Stage direction. Good thing this isn't the final tech.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Thank goodness we're not doing this live.
Right? Oh, goody.
That would be terrible.
Should I wait until I come into scene? Or give you a chance to prepare?
Get our giggles out, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. You want to make a dramatic?
Oh, yes. We like it.
Oh my god.
Very much so.
This is
lovely.
It's very lovely.
So we start off this scene inside Bertie's Art Deco flat with music playing in the background.
HMS come from in on a home trip. Up and down she's bobbing, though the crew pretty tough. The weather's so rough, they're all fed up and say they call him Redhead Tom. I want to say I'll meet you, and with your pals I'll treat you. So who you think I've had a message from? 47 ginger-headed sailors coming home across the briny sea. When the anchors weigh and the journey made.
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh! One of the rummy things about Jeeves is that unless you watch like a hawk, you very seldom see him come into a room.
Sir,
Really speaks to me, that song, you know, Jeeves.
I'm sorry to hear that, sir.
What did you think of it?
Extremely invigorating, sir.
Yes, Jeeves, it's just the word I would have used. Makes you want to get up and ballywell run around the park.
My feelings precisely, sir.
Jeeves held up a silver tray bearing a small envelope.
You have a telegraphic communication, sir, from Mrs. Gregson.
Aunt Agatha? Oh, Lord. Patting down the old what's-it for a gale storm force 8, Jeeves.
Indeed, sir.
Oh, you wouldn't speak in that light, careless tone if you know what was in it, I said with a hollow, mirthless laugh. The curse has come upon us, Jeeves. She wants me to go and join her at, what's the name of that dash place? At Roville San Mer. Oh, hang it all.
I had better be packing, sir.
I suppose so. To people who don't know my Aunt Agatha, I find it extraordinarily difficult to explain why it is that she has always put the wind up me to such a frightful extent. I mean, I'm not dependent on her financially or anything like that. It's simply personality. I've come to the conclusion, you see, all through my childhood and when I was a kid at school, she was always able to turn me inside out with a single glance, and I haven't come out from under the influence yet. We run to height a bit in our family, and there's about 5'9" of Aunt Agatha, topped off with a beaky nose, an eagle eye, and a lot of grey hair, and the general effect is pretty formidable. Anyway, it never even occurred to me for a moment to give her the missing balk in this occasion. If she said I must go to Roville, it was all over except buying the tickets. What's the idea, Jeeves? I wonder why she wants me.
I could not say, sir.
Well, it was no good talking about it. The only gleam of consolation, the only bit of blue among the clouds, was the fact that Roville, I should at last be able to wear the rather fruity hat I bought 6 months ago and had never had the nerve to put on. Still, at a place like Roville, presumably dipping with gaiety and joie de vivre of France, it seemed to me that something might be done. Roville, which I reached early in the morning after a beastly choppy crossing and a jerky night on the train, is a fairly nifty spot where a chappie without encumbrances in the shape of aunts might spend a somewhat genial week or so. It's like all those French places, mainly sands and hotels and casinos. The hotel which had had the bad luck to draw Aunt Agatha's custom was the Splendide, and by the time I got there wasn't a member of staff who didn't seem to be feeling it deeply. I sympathized with them. I've had an experience of Aunt Agatha at hotels before. Of course, the real rough work was all over when I arrived, because I could tell by the way everyone grovelled before her that she had started by having her first room changed because it hadn't a sudden exposure, and her next because it had a creaking wardrobe, and that she had said her say on the subject of the cooking, the waiting, the chambermaiding, and everything else with perfect freedom and candour. She had got the whole gang nicely under control by now. The manager, a whiskered cove who looked like a bandit, simply tied himself into knots whenever she looked at him. All this triumph had produced a sort of grim geniality in her, and she was almost motherly when we met.
I am so glad you were able to come, Bertie. The air will do you so much good. Far better for you than spending your time in stuffy London nightclubs.
Oh,
You will meet some pleasant people too. I want to introduce you to a Miss Hemingway and her brother, who have become great friends of mine. I am sure you will like Miss Hemingway, a nice, quiet girl, so different from the many of the bold girls one meets in London nowadays. Her brother is curate at Chipley in the Glen in Dorsetshire. He tells me they are connected with the Kent Hemingways, a very good family. She is a charming girl.
I had a grim foreboding of awful doom. All this boosting was so unlike Aunt Agatha, who normally is one of the most celebrated right and left-hand knockers in London society. I felt a clammy suspicion, and by Jove, I was right.
Aileen Hemingway is just the girl I should like to see you marry, Bertie. You ought to be thinking of getting married. Marriage might make something of you, and I could not wish you a better wife than dear Aileen. She would do such a good influence in your life.
Here, I say, I was
Bertie!
chilled to the marrow. Aunt Agatha dropped the motherly manner for a bit and gave me the cold eye. Yes, but I say,
It is young men like you, Bertie, who make the person with the future of the race at heart despair. Cursed with too much money, you fritter away in idle selfishness a life which might have been made useful, helpful, and profitable. You do nothing but waste your time on frivolous pleasures. You are simply an antisocial animal, a drone. Bertie, it is imperative that you marry.
but dash it all.
Language, Bertie! You should be breeding children to...
No, really, I say, please. I blushed richly. Aunt Agatha belongs to 2 or 3 of these women's clubs, and she keeps forgetting she isn't in the smoking room.
Bertie,
She resumed, and would no doubt have hauled up her slacks at some length had we not been interrupted.
Ah, here they are, Aileen dear.
And I perceived a girl and a chappie bearing down on me, smiling in a pleased sort of manner.
I want you to meet my nephew, Bertie Wooster. He has just arrived. Such a surprise! I had no notion that he intended coming to Rowville.
I give the couple the way up and down, feeling rather like a cat in the middle of a lot of hounds. Sort of trapped feeling. You know what I mean. An inner voice was whispering that Bertram was up against it. The brother was a small round cove with a face rather like a sheep. He wore pince-nez. His expression was benevolent, and he had one of those collars which button at the back.
Welcome to Rowville, Mr. Wooster. Mute.
Oh, Sydney, doesn't Mr. Wooster remind you of Canon Blenkinshaw, who came to Chipley to preach last Easter?
My dear, the resemblance is most striking.
They peered at me for a while as if I were something in a glass case, and I goggled back and had a good look at the girl. There's no doubt about it, she was different from what Aunt Agatha had called the bold girls one normally meets in London nowadays. No bobbed hair and gaspers about her. I don't know when I've met anybody who looked so respectable, is the only word. She had on a kind of plain dress, and her hair was plain, and her face was sort of mild and saint-like. I don't pretend to be Sherlock Holmes or anything of that order, but the moment I looked at her, I said to myself, that girl plays the organ in a village church. Well, we gazed at one another for a bit, and there was a certain amount of chit-chat, and then I tore myself away. But before I went, I had been booked up to take brother and the girl for a nice drive that afternoon, and the thought of it depressed me to such an extent that I felt there was only one thing to do. I went straight back to my room, dug out the hat, and put it on at a rakish angle. Yep, I'll get this in a minute. I turned around and Jeeves shied like a startled Mustang.
I beg your pardon, sir.
He said in a sort of hushed voice.
You are surely not proposing to appear in public in that thing.
The hat? I said in a careless, debonair way, passing it off. Indeed I do, Jeeves. Rather doggy, don't you think?
No, sir. I rather thought you'd found the article in a novelty shop.
Nonsense, this is all the rage in the more exotic parts of Europe.
Were you planning to undertake a brisk walk through the Alpine regions, sir?
What? No, of course not.
Then I should not advise it, sir. Really, I shouldn't.
Why ever not?
The effect, sir, is loud in the extreme.
I tackled the blighter squarely. I mean to say, nobody knows better than I do that Jeeves is a mastermind and all that, but dash it, a fellow must call his soul his own. You can't be a serf to your valet. Besides, I was feeling pretty low, and the hat was the perfect thing to cheer me up. You know, the trouble with you, Jeeves, is that you're too, what's the word I want? Too bally insular. You can't realize that you aren't in Piccadilly all the time. In a place like this, a bit of colour and a touch of the poetic is expected of you. Why, I've just seen a fellow downstairs in a morning suit of yellow velvet.
Nevertheless, sir.
Jeeves, my mind is made up. I am feeling a little low-spirited and need cheering. Besides, what's wrong with it? This hat seems to me to be calling for. I consider that it has a rather dashing effect, a touch of the Hidalgo, sort of Vincent E. Blasco. What's his name stuff?
Very good, sir,
said Jeeves coldly.
I shall follow a few steps behind, if that is acceptable.
Dashed upsetting, this sort of thing. If there's one thing that gives me the pip, it's unpleasantness in the home, and I could see that relations were going to be fairly strained for a while. And coming on top of Aunt Agatha's bombshell about the Hemingway girl, I don't mind confessing it made me feel more or less as though nobody loved me. The drive that afternoon was about as mouldy as I had expected. The curate chappie prattled on of this and that. The girl admired the view, and I got a headache early on in the proceedings, which started at the soles of my feet and got worse all the way up. I tottered back to my room to dress for dinner, feeling like a toad under the barrow. If it hadn't been for that hat business earlier in the day, I could have sobbed on Jeeves' neck and poured out all of my troubles to him. Even as it was, I couldn't keep the thing entirely to myself. I say, Jeeves.
Sir?
Mix me a stiffish brandy and soda.
Yes, sir.
Stiffish, Jeeves. Not too much soda, but splash the brandy about a bit.
Very good, sir.
After imbibing, I felt a shade better. Jeeves?
Sir?
I rather fancy I'm in the soup, Jeeves.
Indeed, sir.
I eyed the man narrowly. Dashed aloof his manner was, still brooding over the hat. Yes, right up to the hocks. I suppressed the pride of the Woosters and tried to induce him to be a bit matier. Have you seen a girl popping around here with a parson brother?
Miss Hemingway, sir? Yes, sir.
Aunt Agatha wants me to marry her.
Indeed, sir.
Well, what about it?
Sir?
I mean, have you anything to suggest?
No, sir.
The blighter's manner was so cold and unchummy that I bit the bullet and had a dash at being airy. Very good, I said coldly. In that case, tinkety-tonk.
Very good, sir.
And that was, so to speak, that. I remembered it must have been when I was at school, because I don't go in for that sort of thing very largely nowadays. Reading a poem or something about something or other in which there was a line which went, if I've got it rightly, shades of the prison house began to close upon the growing boy. Well, what I'm driving at is that during the next 2 weeks, that's exactly how it was with me. I mean to say, I could hear the wedding bells chiming faintly in the distance and getting louder and louder every day. And how the deuce to slide out of it was more than I could think. Jeeves, no doubt, could have dug up a dozen brainy schemes in a couple of minutes, but he was still aloof and chilly, and I couldn't bring myself to ask him point blank. I mean, he could see easily enough that the young master was in a bad way, and if that wasn't enough to make him overlook the fact that I was still gleaming brightly about the waistband, well, what it amounted to was the old feudal spirit was dead in the blighter's bosom, and there was nothing to be done about it. It really was rummy the way the Hemingway family had taken to me. I wouldn't have said offhand that there was anything particularly fascinating about me. In fact, most people look on me rather as an ass. But there was no getting away from the fact that I went like a breeze with this girl and her brother. They didn't seem happy if they were away from me. I couldn't move a step, dash it, without one of them popping out from somewhere and freezing on. In fact, I'd got into the habit now of retiring to my room when I wanted to take it easy for a bit. I'd managed to get a rather decent suite on the third floor looking down on the promenade. I'd gone to earth in my suite one evening and for the first time that day was feeling that life wasn't so bad after all. Right through the day from lunchtime, I'd had the Hemingway girl on my hands, and Agatha having shooed us off together immediately after the midday meal. The result was, as I looked down on the lighted promenade and saw all the people popping happily about on their way to dinner and the casino and whatnot, a kind of wistful feeling came over me. I couldn't help thinking how dashed happy I could have contrived to be in this place if only Aunt Agatha and other blisters had been elsewhere. I heaved a sigh, and at that moment there was a knock at the door. Someone at the door, Jeeves.
Yes, sir.
He opened the door, and in popped Aileen Hemingway and her brother, the last person I had expected. I really had thought I could be alone for a minute in my own room. Oh, hello,
Oh, Mr. Wooster,
said the girl in a gasping sort of way.
I don't know how to begin.
Then I noticed that she appeared considerably rattled, and as for the brother, he looked like a sheep with a secret sorrow. This made me sit up a bit and take notice. I had supposed that this was just a social call, but apparently something had happened to give them a jolt, though I couldn't see why they should come to me about it. Is anything up?
Poor Sydney, it was my fault. I ought never to have let them go there alone,
Said the girl, dashed agitated. At this point, the brother, who, after shedding a floppy overcoat and parking his hat on a chair, had been standing by wrapped in the silence, gave a little cough, like a sheep caught in the mist on a mountain top.
The fact is, Mr. Wooster, a sad, most deplorable thing has occurred. This afternoon, while you were so kindly escorting my sister, I found the time hang a little heavy upon my hands, and I was tempted to gamble at the casino.
I looked at the man in a kindlier spirit than I had been able to up to date. This evidence that he had sporting blood in his veins made him seem more human, I'm bound to say. If only I'd known earlier that he went into that sort of thing, I felt that we might have had a better time together. Oh, did you click? He sighed heavily.
If you mean was I successful, I must answer in the negative. I rashly persisted in the view that the colour red, having appeared no fewer than 7 times in succession, must inevitably at no distant date give place to black. I was in error. I lost my little all, Mr. Wooster.
Oh, tough luck.
I left the casino and returned to the hotel. There I encountered one of my parishioners, a Colonel Musgrave, who chanced to be holiday-making over here. I induced him to cash me a cheque for £100 on my little account in my London bank.
Well, that was all to the good, what? I hoped to induce the poor fish to look on the bright side. I mean, bit of luck finding someone to slip it into the first crack out of the box.
On the contrary, Mr. Wooster, it did but make matters worse. I burn with shame as I make the confession, but I immediately went back to the casino and lost the entire sum, this time under the mistaken supposition that the colour black was, as I believe the expression is, due for a run.
I say, you were having a night out.
And the most lamentable feature of the whole affair is that I have no funds in the bank to meet the cheque when presented.
I'm free to confess that though I realized by this time that all this was leading up to a touch and that my ear was shortly going to be bitten in no uncertain manner, my heart warmed to the poor Prue. Indeed, I gazed at him with no little interest and admiration. Never before had I encountered a curate so genuinely all to the mustard. Little as he might look like one of the lads of the village, he certainly appeared to be the real Tabasco, and I wished he had shown me this side of his character before.
Colonel Musgrave
He went on, gulping somewhat.
is not a man who would be likely to overlook the matter. He is a hard man. He will expose me to my vicar. My vicar is a hard man. In short, Mr. Wooster, if Colonel Musgrave presents that cheque, I shall be ruined, and he leaves for England tonight.
The girl, who had been standing by biting her handkerchief and gurgling at intervals while the brother got the above off his chest, now started in once more.
Miss Wooster, won't you help us? Oh, do say you will. We must have the money to get back the cheque from Colonel Musgrave before 9 o'clock. He lives on the 920. I was at my wits' end what to do when I remembered how kind you had always been. Mr. Wooster, will you lend Senior the money and take these as security?
And before I knew what she was doing, she had dived into her bag, produced a case, and opened it.
My pearls, I don't know what they are worth. They were a present from my poor father.
Now, alas, no more.
But I know that must be worth ever so much more than the amount we want.
Dashed embarrassing, made me feel like a pawnbroker, more than a touch of popping the watch about the whole business. No, I say, really, there's no need of any security, you know, or any rot of that kind. Only too glad to let you have the money. I've got it on me, as a matter of fact. Rather luckily, drew some this morning, and I fished it out and pushed it across. The brother shook his head.
Mr. Wooster, we appreciate your generosity, your beautiful, heartening confidence in us, but we cannot permit this.
What Sydney means is that you really don't know anything about us when you come to think of it. You mustn't risk lending us all this money without any security at all to two people who, after all, are almost strangers. If I hadn't thought that you would be quite businesslike about this, I would never have dared you to come to you.
The idea of pledging the pearls at the local Mont de Pitié was, you will readily understand, repugnant to us, if you will just give me a receipt as a matter of form.
Oh, righto. I wrote out the receipt and handed it over, feeling more or less of an ass. Here you are. The girl took the piece of paper, shoved it in her bag, grabbed the money and slipped it to Brother Sidney. And then, before I knew what was happening, she had darted at me, kissed me, and legged it from the room. I'm bound to say the thing rattled me. So dashed sudden and unexpected. I mean, a girl like that, always been quiet and demure and whatnot, by no means the sort of female you'd have expected to go out the place kissing fellows. Through a sort of mist, I could see that Jeeves had appeared from the background and was helping the brother on with his coat. And I remember wondering idly how the dickens a man could bring himself to wear a coat like that, it being more like a sack than anything else. Then the brother came up to me and grasped my hand.
I cannot thank you sufficiently, Mr. Wooster.
Oh, not at all.
You have saved my good name. Good name in man or woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which enriches not him, and makes me poor indeed. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Good night, Mr. Wooster.
Good night, old thing. I blinked at Jeeves as the door shut. Rather a sad affair, Jeeves.
Yes, sir.
Lucky I happened to have all that money handy.
Well, yes, sir.
You speak as though you didn't think much of it.
It is not my place to criticize your actions, sir, but I will venture to say that I think you behaved a little rashly.
What? Lending the money?
Yes, sir. These fashionable French watering places are notoriously infested by dishonest characters.
This was a bit too thick. Now look here, Jeeves, I could stand a lot, but when it comes to your casting whatever word is on a bird in holy orders...
Perhaps I am over-suspicious, sir, but I have seen a great deal of these resorts. When I was up in the employment of Lord Frederick Ranelagh, Shortly before I entered your service, the lordship was very neatly swindled by a criminal known, I believe, by the sobriquet of Soapy Sid, who scraped acquaintance with us in Monte Carlo with the assistance of a female accomplice. I have never forgotten the circumstances.
I don't want to butt in on your reminiscences, Jeeves, but you're talking through your hat. How can there have been anything fishy about this business? They left me the pearls, haven't they? Very well then, think before you speak. You'd better be tooling down to the desk now and having these things shoved in the hotel safe. I picked up the case and opened it. Oh, great Scott! The bally thing was empty. Oh, my lord, don't tell me there's been dirty work at the crossroads after all.
Precisely, sir. It was in exactly the same manner that Lord Frederick was swindled on the occasion to which I have alluded. While his female accomplice was gratefully embracing his lordship, Soapy Sid substituted a duplicate case for the one containing the pearls and went off with the jewels, the money, and the receipt. On the strength of the receipt, he subsequently demanded from his lordship the return of the pearls, and his lordship, not being able to produce them, was obliged to pay a heavy sum in compensation. This is a simple but effective ruse.
I felt as if the bottom had dropped out of things with a jerk. Soapy Sid? Sid? Sydney? Brother Sydney? Why, by Jove, Jeeves, do you think that person was Soapy Sid?
Yes, sir.
But it seems so extraordinary. Why, his collar buttoned at the back. I mean, he would have deceived a bishop. You really think he was Soapy Sid?
Yes, sir. I recognized him directly he came into the room.
I stared at the blighter. You recognized him?
Yes, sir.
Then, dash it all, I think you might have told me.
I thought it would save a disturbance and unpleasantness if I merely abstracted the case from the man's pocket as I assisted him with his coat, sir. Here it is.
He laid another case on the table beside the dead one, and by Jove, you couldn't tell them apart. I opened it, and there were the good old pearls, as merry and bright as Dammit, smiling up at me. I gazed feebly at the man. I was feeling a bit overwrought. Jeeves, you're an absolute genius.
Yes, sir.
Relief was surging over me in great chunks by now. Thanks to Jeeves, I was not going to be called on to cough up several £1,000. It looks to me as though you had saved the whole home. I mean, even a chappie endowed with the immortal kind of dear old Sid is hardly likely to have the nerve to come back and retrieve these little chaps.
I should imagine not, sir.
Well then, oh, I say, you don't think they're just paste or anything like that?
No, sir. These are genuine pearls and extremely valuable.
Well then, dash it, I'm on velvet, absolutely reclining on the good old plush. I may be down £100, but I'm up a jolly good string of pearls. Am I right or wrong?
Hardly that, sir. I think that you will have to restore the pearls.
What? To Sid? Not while I have my physique.
No, sir. To their rightful owner.
But who is their rightful owner?
Mrs. Gregson, sir.
What? How do you know?
It was all over the hotel an hour ago that Mrs. Gregson's pearls had been abstracted. I was speaking to Mrs. Gregson's maid shortly before you came in, and she informed me that the manager of the hotel is now in Mrs. Gregson's suite.
And having a devil of a time, what?
So I should be disposed to imagine, sir.
The situation was beginning to unfold before me. I'll go and give them back to her, eh? It'll put me one up. What?
Precisely, sir. And if I may make a suggestion, I think it might be judicious to stress the fact that they were stolen by...
Great Scott! By the dash girl she was hounding me to marry. By Jove.
Exactly, sir.
Jeeves, this is going to be the biggest score of my jolly old relative that has ever occurred in the world's history.
It is not unlikely, sir.
Keep her quiet for a bit, what? Make her stop snootering me for a while.
It should have that effect, sir.
Golly, I bounded for the door. Long before I reached Aunt Agatha's lair, I could tell that the hunt was up. Diverse chappies in hotel uniform and not a few chambermaids of sorts were hanging about in the corridor, and through the panels I could hear a mixed assortment of voices, with Aunt Agatha's topping the lot. I knocked, but no one took any notice, so I trickled in. Among those present, I noticed the chambermaid in hysterics, Aunt Agatha with her hair bristling, and the whiskered cove who looked like a bandit, the hotel manager fellow. Oh, hello, 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 hello. Aunt Agatha shushed me away. No welcoming smile for Bertram.
Don't bother me now, Bertie,
She snapped, looking at me as if I were more or less the last straw. Something up?
Yes, 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 I've lost my pearls.
Pearls? 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 No, really? Dashed annoying. Where did you see them last?
What does it matter where I saw them last? They've been stolen.
Here, Wilfred the Whisker King, who seemed to have been taking a rest between rounds, stepped into the ring again and began to talk rapidly in French. Cut to the quick, he seemed. The chambermaid whooped in the corner. Sure you've looked everywhere?
Of course I've looked everywhere.
Well, you know, I've often lost a collar stud and...
Do try not to be so maddening, Bertie. I have enough to bear without your imbecilities. Oh, be quiet, be quiet!
She shouted in the sort of voice used by sergeant majors and those who call the cattle home across the sands of Dee. And such was the magnetism of her forceful personality that Wilfred subsided as if he had run into a wall. The chambermaid continued to go strong. I say, I think there's something the matter with this girl. Isn't she crying or something? You may not have spotted it, but I'm rather quick at noticing things.
She stole my pearls. I am convinced of it.
This started the whisker specialist off again, and in about a couple of minutes, Aunt Agatha had reached the frozen Grand Dame stage and was putting the last of the bandits through it in the voice she usually reserves for snubbing waiters in restaurants.
I tell you, my good man, for the 100th time.
I say, don't want to interrupt you and all that, but these aren't the little chaps by any chance, are they? I pulled the pearls out of my pocket and held them up. Those look like pearls, what? I don't know when I've made a more juicy moment. It was one of the occasions about which I shall prattle to my grandchildren, if I ever have any, which at the moment is going to press seems more or less of 100 to 1 shot. Aunt Agatha simply deflated before my eyes. It reminded me of when I once saw some chappies letting the gas out of the balloon.
Where?
She gurgled. I got them from your friend, Miss Hemingway. Even now she didn't get it.
Miss Hemingway. But how did they come into her possession?
How? Because she jolly well stole them, pinched them, swiped them, because that's how she makes her living, dash it. Calling up to unsuspicious people in hotels and sneaking their jewellery. I don't know what her alias is, but her bally brother, the chap whose collar buttons at the back, is known in criminal circles as Soapy Sid. She blinked.
Miss Hemingway, a thief! I...
She stopped and looked feebly at me.
But how did you manage to recover the pearls, Bertie dear?
Never mind, I have my methods. I dug out my entire stack of manly courage, breathed a short prayer, and let her have it right in the thorax. I must say, Aunt Agatha, dash it all, I think you've been infernally careless. There's a printed notice in every bedroom in this place saying that there's a safe in the manager's office where jewellery and valuables ought to be placed. And you absolutely disregarded it. And what's the result? The first thief who came along simply walked into your room and pinched your pearls. And instead of admitting that it was all your fault, you started biting this poor man here in the gizzard. You have been very, very unjust to this poor man.
Yes,
moaned the poor man. And this unfortunate girl, what about her? Where does she get off? You've accused her of stealing the things on absolutely no evidence. I think she would be jolly well advised to bring an action for whatever it is and soak you for substantial damages.
Mais oui, c'est trop fort.
Shouted the bandit chief, backing me up like a good 'un, and the chambermaid looked up inquiringly, as if the sun was breaking through the clouds.
I shall recompense her.
Said Aunt Agatha feebly. If you take my tip, you jolly well will, and that eftsoons are rightly speedily. She's got a cast iron case, and if I were her, I wouldn't take a penny under 20 quid. But what gives me the pit most is the way you've unjustly abused this poor man here and tried to give his hotel a bad name.
Yes, by damn, it's too bad. You careless old woman. You give my hotel bad names. Would you or wasn't it tomorrow you leave my hotel by Great Scotland?
And more to the same effect. All good right stuff. And presently, having said his say, he withdrew, taking the chambermaid with him. The latter with a crisp tenner clutched in a vice-like grip. I suppose she and the bandit split it outside. A French hotel manager wouldn't be likely to let real money wander away from him without counting himself in on the division. I turned to Aunt Agatha, whose demeanour was now rather like that of one who, picking up daisies on the railway, has just caught the down express in the small of the back. I don't want to rub it in, Aunt Agatha, but I should just like to point out before I go that the girl who stole your pearls is the girl you've been hounding me on to marry ever since I got here. Good heavens! Do you realize that if you had brought the thing off, I should probably have had children who would have sneaked my watch while I was dangling them on my knee? I'm not the complaining sort of chap as a rule, but I must say that another time I do think that you might be more careful about how you go about egging me on to marry females. I gave her one look, turned on my heels, and left the room. 10 o'clock. A clear night and all's well, Jeeves. Breezing back into the good old suite.
I'm gratified to hear it, sir.
If 20 quid would be of any use to you, Jeeves.
I am much obliged, sir.
There was a pause, and then, well, it was a wrench, but I did it. I removed the hat and handed it over.
Do you wish me to keep your novelty hat along with your regular garments, sir?
I gave the thing one last longing look. It had been very dear to me. No, take it away. Give it to the deserving poor. I shall never wear it again.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And that's the
you,
end of the
everyone.
short story. Oh, it was fantastic. Everyone was great.
That was really great.
Oh my gosh.
JD, you do an amazing French accent. Where did this come from?
I took some French, but I dabble. And,
Oh my
and
goodness.
did you like my pearls?
Oh yeah, I
those.
love the pearls.
I had
That-
nothing even close.
That and my bag.
What is the Joey? Joey doesn't share food, yes, but like,
Oh yes, from
That
is it
is-
Joey from Friends?
That is
Yeah.
from Friends.
Okay.
Yeah,
It does not
Jeeves
share food.
always solves everything.
That was fantastic. Margaret, you have a drama background, don't you? Don't you
Yes.
have theater or something?
I was a wannabe, yeah.
Well, I thought you did great.
Theater in high school and then musical theater minor in college. So any opportunity I have to trod the boards.
I could see it. I could see it. You were so good.
It was really fun. Thank you.
That was really, really, really fun. I enjoyed
It
that.
really was.
It's
bringing
very
that
witty. I was reading the narration part, even like cackling in the background. So yeah, it was great.
You were laughing, and I was like, I gotta mute myself because I'm gonna join in, and it's never gonna get done.
The language that P.G. Wodehouse uses is just so incredibly creative. I mean, like some of the lines he puts together, you kind of like, you just read them and you just have to laugh. They are just so kind of like ridiculous, but at the same time so poetic, you know, something. But they're so accurate, you know. I mean, there was one in one of the other ones where he was talking about Aunt Agatha and one of his other aunts, and he said, what was it he said now? He said they were calling to each other like mastodons braying to each other over the primeval swamps. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, how can you get like taught something like that?
Right.
You,
Yeah.
you don't get taught. That just comes from within.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I love the old slang too. It's so much fun.
Mm.
I just love it.
Mm. Yeah, I was reading through and I was saying a line really high pitched until I read that it said, like a sergeant major or a sheep is calling to the sheep across the D. And then I was like, oh, this has to be deeper. That's so funny.
One of the things that annoyed me about the TV show was they kept changing the woman who played Aunt Agatha. And like the first one who played her was absolutely perfect. But then later, in some of the later series, they changed her for another actor. I don't know what happened to the original one, but she was never quite the same sort of thing as the first one. She was like the ideal Aunt Agatha, and she was very formidable when she put it on.
Nice.
Her character is great. One of the favorites, I think, in general of of readers of the series or the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Ah, that was very, very good.
It's
And we're now
invigorating to finish the week on a good note.
Tinkety tonk.
Tinkety.
Tonk, whatever. Work that into your conversation this week. I dare you.
Oh boy. Add a little
Challenge
spice.
accepted. I have three meetings tomorrow. In one of them, I will use it. And I will let you know.
I bet you will.
Advertising meeting. Oh man. Interesting.
oh,
So what's
Right.
on tap for the next time? How do you guys choose your scripts?
it's a very long and torturous process,
Very complicated. Super complicated.
as you can
Has to
probably imagine.
It has to do with going to Project Gutenberg and going,
Oh, okay.
The next one we are doing is actually a science fiction.
If it's
Sorry.
Project Gutenberg, it should be something from Police Academy. No, maybe Cocoon.
No, I forget the name of it. Do you remember it, Christy?
Blessed
bless
be.
Thank you.
It's called The Survivors. I'm forgetting the name of the person, but I think it was 1960s short story, sci-fi
Yes.
short story.
It was a 1960s short story, which just very recently went on to Project Gutenberg. I'm not quite sure why, because I mean, usually the copyright wouldn't be out, so I'm guessing that either the author or perhaps the author's estate has donated it to Project Gutenberg early or something. But yeah, it's very new and it should be a good read, and we'll try and get some science fiction people in.
Nice.
It's got a lot of suspense, really cool stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, quite.
Exactly.
If it ever gets a little bananas for something else, let me know though.
Speaking of Hugh Laurie, who played one of the characters in this sketch, for some reason I followed a link that was something cubist something or other, and it was a 1980s sketch of like a young Hugh Laurie and Emma Thompson in a sci-fi like sketch, and they're trying to escape some underground bunker, and they're in like silver jumpsuits or whatever, and of course a mini skirt for Emma Thompson. They're running and trying to get out, and he's trying to convince her that he's read this ancient manuscript from another world called the Bible, and there's a different answer to life, and it's loaf, and we should try it. And it's like, oh my god,
Oh my
it's
god,
really
that
really
sounds
funny.
so funny.
They're so funny.
Okay, but sci-fi is better than fantasy because okay, she's wearing a skirt, but in fantasy, it's like her maximum armor is a bikini.
Always, it must be
Extra thunder with her thong, and it's like, dude, what the?
Them's the rules,
Physics.
Physics.
Yeah.
It's really cute. Yay, sci-fi. I was just considering doing a video about like favorite sci-fi fantasy reads since I've been on BookTube, because there have been some really good ones that I've learned about from people on the YouTubes, and why not?
Cool.
Well,
Yeah.
now everyone
Oh.
loves Dune, so
That's not on my list, funnily enough.
no, but
I'm
I'm
the
not,
queen
I'm
of
not
books
gonna
you've
be
never heard of.
no, but I'm not gonna be a hater.
I would
I'm
watch
happy
that
that
read.
it's getting attention. And they have apparently greenlit Dune Messiah, which is going to be Dune 3, but it's actually Dune 2. That one's going to be visually good.
Hmm.
Good.
Cool. Cool.
Very
Uh,
cool.
so yeah, that's next time.
David, take us out.
So thank you everyone for tuning in for another show. Thank you to our wonderful guests, J.D Estrada and Margaret Pinard. Thank you to my co-host, Christie, who made a wonderful Jeeves. And we will say tinkety-tonk.
Oh.